What's up, fellow Vanguard nerds? I'm Babblerab, and right here we got the Chouchou deck profile. This is the second build. I've made some adjustments from the previous build. Honestly, I am in love with this deck. It's like definitely my go-to Bermuda deck. The burst that the deck has on first and second stride, like every single Lapria that you go into, which is only 2. But like the mid game that this deck has is like unlike any other Bermuda deck, honestly, that I've ever played, and it's just like it's so deadly in mid game. I like love how much power this deck gets in mid game. It has no late game at all if you're playing super aggro, but I mean if you're playing super defensive, it actually does. So it's you can alternate your playstyle depending on what your opponent's playing against. So if you have a feeling you're gonna get bursted, but like I guess we'll say spikes because I know spikes are kind of bursty. Like if you know that they're gonna go to town on you next turn and you don't think you can kill them this turn, like you have the option to just not continue attacking, like when you've gone Lapria a second time. So like it's really cool how versatile the deck can be offensively and defensively. And what's also really nice is that it's really technical to play. You have to know when to use Counterblast and Soul Blast, and like if everything works perfectly, you're launching at least 8 attacks in a turn, and it's ridiculous how often this deck, or how like aggressive this deck can be, and it's so much fun to play. So yeah, this is probably one of my main Bermuda decks right now, and that's between either Pacifica and Prisms, I don't know which. So yeah, but Chouchou definitely has earned a spot as one of my favorite Bermuda decks at the moment. So yeah, starting is Chouchou Hulala. Honestly, I don't really need to explain this card. Throw it into your soul, call a new column of Chouchou units, and then you just start attacking. It's so good. Trigger lineup. 4 heal. G-guarding is really good in this deck. It's not really much else to say. The 4 draws, you do want a draw trigger that can soul charge itself because soul is an issue in this deck, but people have been saying, why are you not playing Feluca? My thoughts are, which I have said in comments, is like between the draw trigger and Serah, as well as the starter, honestly I don't have big soul issues. You just gotta conserve the soul, know when to use it, and I just find that there's better cards that I could be using in the deck than, or better cards than Feluca to be using in the deck right now. And it's another non-Chouchou unit, which is problematic since this deck is so stingy about like nothing but Chouchou, so you have to use as little as possible in my mind. It's kind of similar to duos in like mainly the rate build. Mirror, you can literally run whatever the heck you want. 8 crit. You need kill potential here, and stands are just not good in Bermudas for the most part. So yeah, Serah is such a good card in the deck. This card is just a crit trigger, who cares? So yeah, Serah, Counterblast 1, throw in a soul, draw a card, call something from your hand after the Vanguard attacks. It's, oh my god, it's so good. Grade 1s. This card I have changed from the Chouchou PG. Don't play the Chouchou PG. It doesn't do anything useful for the deck. I mean, you get to add another one, but like, wouldn't you want to be able to countercharge damage, which you're going to be using like 4 or 5 of in a turn next turn anyway? Like, this card is, like, you need the unflipping PG in this deck, no questions asked. You counterblast way too much. It's like comparable to duos, and I'd say Harmony in that case, where like they countercharge so much, so you need the unflip. Just no questions asked. I wasn't playing Strat Enablers in the deck, and it was suffering because in early stages of the game I'd have to be pitching like several cards. Not several, but like 2+ cards to actually pull a stride off. With the Strat Enablers, it allows my first stride to be a lot easier, and then once Tirua is online, I'm able to basically just start going for those free strides afterwards. So this just enables the continuous free strides to start going, and basically deck goes to town after that. So yeah. It's good. What I could do, honestly, if I did want to try Feluca, is I would probably cut Shandee down to like 2 and play 1 Feluca. It's a weird number, but yeah. 4 Clenes. That's your Tirua searcher, but she can never be bothered, so basically it doesn't do anything useful in the deck because you just never are able to get your Tirua. Oh, that's just me. Okay. Never mind. So I'm just never able to see Tirua in the deck. I don't know if it's actually pronounced Tirua or Tirua. I'm going to pronounce it that Tirua, so. But yeah, and then she's got her second effect. If you have a Tirua Vanguard, you Soul Blast 1 and then Countercharge 1. I never actually use this skill too much. Does I put her on the bottom of the deck too? Yeah. I never actually use it much because I'm usually saving my soul for like another play, so that's just me. And then 3 copies of Praire. I originally hated this card when I started playing the deck, and it wasn't until like a little while later that I actually realized how potent this card actually is, because it ends up resulting in a situation where you have Muritz, and say like she swings, you put something at the bottom of the deck, you call a Praire, and then you Soul Blast and you can put another Muritz behind her, or in front of her, and then it's like, oh, that's another attack. So she's really good. Again, the biggest problem with this deck is knowing when to counterblast and Soul Blast. That's the biggest issue that Chouchou has as a sub-clan, is because it's so counter and Soul Blast heavy. You have to know which skills am I going to be using this turn, and which cards can I get the most out of this turn. So, still really good card. I really enjoy using the card. It enables a lot of different plays, but yeah, there is a very definitive counterblast and Soul Blast scarcity with this deck. If we get a counter charge and Soul Charger, like, oh my gosh, that'd be so good. So, I have seen lots of decks that run like very few number of copies of this. Some even don't run the card. I really, really love Blanche. When you are making your plays, yes, it is a Soul Blast. So you do lose a Soul Blast you could use for something else. But the thing is, I've had times where like I need combo pieces, and Blanche just allows me to dig 4 combo pieces. Check top 4, add 1 Chouchou to hand, put something else at the bottom of the deck, whatever, and then put the rest and then shuffle the rest into the deck. Like, that allows you to dig, that keeps the deck consistent, that gets you to the combo pieces that you need. And I've had so many times where like, and the thing is, even if she's dead, you don't actually care, because that just puts a big target on her head for your other Chouchou effects. You're just like, okay, well now Blanche is not going to be doing anything, let's just put her back in the deck, whatever. So, she's really good. I will never run less than 4 of her at the moment. I love the card too much. And then we're running 4 Listella. This might actually be cut down to 3 to play a 4th copy of Ayana. I find that I'm using Listella's skill less and less as I keep going in favor of like Muritz and like Ayana. But Listella is still an enabler, so that's not bad. It's just I find that there's times where she just doesn't do enough. She still becomes an 11k attacker, so that's still a magic number, and they have to still guard if they're 11k. But I just find that her utility is dropping a little bit, but she's still overall not a terrible card. So, camera battery decided to die, so I'm just going to start here talking about Ayana again. So, in the original Chouchou deck profile, I recall saying I was debating on cutting her entirely, I believe, or something like that, because I didn't find her as useful as other cards. She's a lot more useful than I originally thought she was, and she's really, really important in the deck. But yeah, one thing that I don't really like about the deck right now is that it doesn't really have an early game. That's just entirely due to personal preference. So there is there's the 10k option, which basically reduces the potency of the opponent's early game. So basically it's tougher to be rushed. Or there's the grade 2 option, or there's the 9k on hit, put something at the bottom of the deck, draw a card. The only problem I have with that card is that it's a break even, not a +1. So I don't actually know like if it'd be worth playing. I may maybe cut Listella from the deck, but the thing is that she's still really good just to keep cards in hand and keep drawing. So I don't 100% know what I'm going to do with it at the moment, but as it currently stands, this is the build that has been working. It doesn't have much of an early game at the moment, but that is what it is at the moment, so yeah. And then we got the star of the show when she shows up, Tirua. Playing 4 of her, never play less than 4 of her. Free Stride is so good, and you have your Stride deck. Set up to accommodate this. So yeah, you should pretty much always play 4 Tirua, because it's one of the best cards in the deck. This first skill I don't actually use as much as like you would think. Like, it's one of those skills you don't want to just blindly use, because you need to think to yourself, how much counterblast do I need, and what else am I going to be using this turn? So if you're like sitting at 3 counterblast or something, and you know you're going to be using like Lapria this turn, then you've got like an Ayana or something else, like you need to like think about how much counterblast can we actually get away with using this turn. And there are times when you just don't use Tirua's skill because you need to use the counterblast for something else. The Free Stride from her is just, oh my gosh, it's like, it's just fantastic though. And then we're playing 3 copies of Muritz. Really no complaints about this card, just all around solid. One thing I'm debating on trying is the grade 3 of the, what is it, Malvies or Melvies? Or maybe a Selvies, I don't know. whatever the grade 3 of those 3 cards is, I'm debating on maybe trying it instead of this, because if my opponent's like, I'm not going to stride against you, then you can actually put that on rear guards and then just start multi-attacking anyway. So there is that. This deck is quite GB reliant, but as it currently stands, Muritz is just an all-around solid card. Like, she's my preferred, like, I pretty much always want to see her on rear guard because she's just that good. This is always Vanguard, and you want to see this as much as possible. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Stride deck. So for G-Zone, 1, 2, 3, 4. This should always be a 4 of period. For Lapria, what she does is you counterblast 1 when she attacks, flip up a copy of herself in the G-Zone, and then for each face-up card in your G-Zone, you choose 2 of your rear guards, put them at the bottom of the deck, and you draw 1 card for each of them. And then if you have a heart card with Chouchou in its name, you draw 1 more. And then she has a second effect, which I need to reread just for the number here. And then if you have drawn 4 or more cards in total, you choose up to 5 cards in your hand and call them to rear guard. So you call a new field. So this is where the potency of the deck really starts to come in, is where this ridiculous mid-game that this deck has is a thing. Is if I read to grade 3 first, and then you attack me, I G-guard, you are facing 2 turns of full power Lapria instead of just 1 turn with her not at full power and then 1 with her at full power. Because I'm attacking, whatever. It may be activating an effect or 2 to get an extra attack off. I'm swinging with Lapria, return, most likely, unless not for this one here. Drawing 6 cards, calling a new field down, and then just proceeding to keep attacking back and forth. And then if you're still alive that next turn and I've got a decent amount of counterblast left, I'm doing it a second time. This is where like your 7-8 attacks in a turn come into play, and this is where this card is just insane in the deck. In addition, the deck still has ways to even like make the first stride useful. If you have a Serah, if your starter is still alive, even on first stride, this thing is deadly. Like, this was a while ago, but like I versed Kopek's Big Belly deck and killed him on first stride because this card is just that insane. Now, the big problem that something I've always said with this deck is, depending on how you play it, the game is over. The game is decided by the end of the turn that you stride Lapria a second time, solely due to the fact that if you're actually going like really, really aggressively, you will have no soul, no counterblast left. So if they're not dead by the end of that second stride, you're out of resources and you're probably going to lose. Typically is how that works. And most games that I've played with this deck usually end before, or usually end one way or another after I stride this card the second time. So, yeah. Basically what I'm saying is the rest of your G-Zone's kind of irrelevant because you don't intend to make the games last that long to make use of it. So, with that in mind, we got for Olyvia just because really it's the second best alternative. You can't, like, it's the second best alternative because really nothing else in the G-Zone really works well with this deck. So you got Olyvia. If you're playing more conservatively, she's actually going to be really insane because instead of putting the cards back to your deck, you're now putting them into your hand. So you just can recall them to keep attacking. So it's good in theory, just like Lapria is really good too, except it's a little more reliable since you can put the cards back in your hand and you know exactly what's coming back in your hand. Only downside is that depending on how aggro you're going, you're going to be out of counterblast before you even get to your first Olyvia. So there's that. If you're playing Lapria more defensively and you're deciding, hey, I'm going to go balls to the walls with Olyvia instead, which in theory is not the worst idea. I've never actually like gone with a more defensive playstyle because I usually have come in with the intention of I'm going to kill you by my second Lapria. So it'd be worth a try, honestly. I may give that a go if I'm versing someone who can hold hand better than me. But it's, yeah, not really too much else to say there. It's really untested at the moment because I have a certain playstyle with this deck, which usually involves killing them by the first time I stride Lapria. So, yeah. Ange and Priscilla. Games usually don't last long enough for you to stride her, and you really would be better off using that 2 counterblast for something else. However, they are there in case you need to play more defensively with Lapria and you don't get the kill, which means you can now go into GB8 and go to town instead, and she's just a more potent version of Olyvia. Ange's there if you, again, are playing more defensively, you're versing something that's much more controlling, and you can't make big pushes on your turn. So you would then be playing Ange to bounce fields, swing large numbers, get quad drive. And it's particularly useful if you're versing Link Joker, where you're trying to call a field, but your key columns are locked. So that's to clear the columns out, and then most likely you're not going to commit to a field that turn. You're going to try to burst them next turn with either Olyvia or Lapria. So they're really, really niche, but I think in theory, they're essential to the deck. And then for the G-Zone, you have the two most important G cards in the deck in my mind, which is basically cards that reduce your field size during your opponent's turn so that you're able to achieve that free stride condition on Tirua. So she Soul Blast, puts something at the bottom of the deck, you draw a card, super good, and she bounces something to your hand and calls something to guard to increase her shield value. Both really solid cards, both increase their shield value, both reduce your field size, thus getting you closer to that free stride with the one rear guard or less. Now, depending on if you're playing more defensively, she's a solid card because you're going to have like 8-9 cards in your hand. So she'll get to huge shield values. So you would play the Shandee in that deck, or in the deck, because you can guard with huge numbers. I really hope I'm not over 16 here. I'm pretty certain this is 16. 10 plus 5 is 15, 16. I've got 15 cards in the G-Zone that I know exactly what I want with it. And then this last slot, it's like, I could play Screw, but really, who cares? I could play Sabreeze, but honestly, it's 2 counterblast and I can't afford it. I could play Dismal, but I actually want my opponent to clear my field, so that doesn't work. So then it comes down to, what the hell else do I play? Like, Loris is, who cares? I'd rather use Ange. Don't even touch Somni. Don't touch the on-hit Chouchou Stride. So it came down to, theoretically, this card's not bad because it's... I don't really know, actually. Like, let's assume your starter's gone, and then you're going for that free stride, but hey, you don't have a field. You could go Citron to put a unit behind that you're going to put back into your deck anyway. So she's not horrible, and she gets the 10k, so in theory it's not terrible, but I still prefer to have like a mostly empty field, so... I don't know. It's really difficult. 15 of the 16 cards in the G-Zone, it's no question this is what goes in it, and then there's just that 16th card that's just weird and just no idea what to put in, so... Yeah. That's the second build of the Chouchou deck. It's performed fairly well. There's been times where I've just drawn into a bunch of triggers. I'm just like, I don't know exactly what to do with this, but oh well. It's still probably one of my favorite Bermuda decks right now. Like Prisms, Pacifica, Reindeer. Reindeer's so much fun. But like, it's definitely a deck that I'm going to be maining and going to try to get good at with, because it's like really, really fun to play. So, yeah. That is the entirety of my Chouchou deck. I'm Babblerab. If you have any comments or suggestions about the deck, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. I will respond to them. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next video where I'm discussing RIP Life Because University. So yeah, peace.